Okay, thank you very much. 21 months ago, a global pandemic reached our shores. Few of us had any idea how long it would last or the toll it would take. And today, we're facing Omicron, an even more virulent variant of this virus. But we can be confident that we will get through this because our government did understand from the very outset that to save lives, our economy would have to be locked down. So we put in place unprecedented measures to meet this unprecedented challenge. Today's economic and fiscal update provides Canadians with a transparent report of our nation's finances. It also includes targeted investments that will ensure we have the weapons we need to finish the fight against COVID-19, an effort that is more urgent now than ever with the surge of Omicron. Une politique de santé publique forte demeure la meilleure politique économique. La campagne de vaccination du Canada figure parmi les campagnes les plus efficaces au monde. 80% des membres de la population admissible, personnes âgées de 5 ans et plus, ont reçu leur première dose, mais le variant préoccupant Omicron rappelle qu'il reste du travail à faire pour en finir avec la pandémie. La mise à jour présente les investissements réalisés par le gouvernement fédéral pour s'assurer que les doses de rappel sont offertes gratuitement à tous les Canadiens admissibles, acheter des vaccins pédiatriques pour tous les enfants admissibles, distribuer sans frais des millions de tests de dépistage rapides aux provinces, aux territoires et aux communautés autochtones, obtenir des produits thérapeutiques contre la COVID-19. Omicron makes boosters more important than ever. Please go and get your booster as soon as you are eligible. I am really glad that I have booked mine. We have enough boosters for everyone. Boosters are a truly essential defense for us all against the mounting threat of Omicron. To protect Canada's economic resilience in the face of a resurgence of the virus, we're moving forward on proposed measures, including the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit and Local Lockdown Program. These would deliver needed support to local businesses and workers should additional restrictions be required. Furthermore, we're providing support to help prevent outbreaks at workplaces and schools, including improvements to indoor ventilation and air quality. We're also moving forward with 10 days of paid sick leave for workers in federally regulated workplaces. These measures will ensure that our economy stays strong through the pandemic and that our recovery is robust and inclusive. Above all, we know that our national focus, once we emerge from COVID-19, must be growth and competitiveness. Measures to promote them will figure prominently in the budget. While Canada is in the midst of a strong economic recovery, we know that challenges lie ahead. Inflation is a global phenomenon driven by the unprecedented challenge of reopening the world economy. Factors like global supply chain disruptions and climate change are driving up the prices of energy, groceries, and other everyday goods. We know that many Canadians are worried about the cost of living. Yesterday, the Government of Canada renewed the Bank of Canada's 2% inflation target to help ensure that the current inflation rate does not become entrenched. Notre gouvernement continuera de faire preuve de souplesse au fur et à mesure que nous avons à composer avec une économie incertaine, en plus de gérer un virus imprévisible. Nous avions le ratio de la dette nette au PIB le plus faible du G7 au début de la crise et, en fait, nous avons augmenté notre avantage relatif tout au long de la pandémie. Nous demeurons déterminés à respecter les points d'ancrage budgétaire que nous avons définis dans le budget de ce printemps. à savoir la réduction du ratio de la dette fédérale au PIB à moyen terme et l'atténuation des déficits liés à la COVID-19. We know our investments to fight COVID-19 and support Canadians have been expensive. And we understand the responsibility we have to be careful and prudent managers of Canada's public finances. With winter upon us and Omicron now among us, we know that there will be tempests ahead, but we are resilient. Our plan is working. And as we finish the fight against COVID-19, we will turn our resolve towards fighting climate change, advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and building an economy that is stronger, fairer, more competitive, and more prosperous. Thank you very much, and I'm happy now to answer your questions.
Okay, wonderful. So can I have Abigail Beeman and Glenn McGregor come up to each microphone here as it works for you guys?
I can't hear perfectly clearly. The sound is not entirely crisp, so I would ask people to speak as crisply as they can. And if I don't hear the question, if I don't hear the question exactly, I'll ask for a clarification. Sorry.
So we'll have Abigail from Global News go first. Hi, Minister Freeland. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So you could have chosen to drive down the deficit further in the short term, but you are committing to billions in new spending. I'm wondering if you can speak to that rationale for continuing to spend more versus driving down the deficit.
So first of all, let me be really clear. This update is what it says on the title page. It is an economic and fiscal update. This is not the master plan for the Canadian economy going forward. That will be in the budget. In this plan, there is some spending, but that is spending which is very carefully targeted at having the tools to finish fighting COVID. I don't think any Canadian will regret our spending on things like rapid tests, on things like therapeutics. It is also money to help continue the support that some businesses and workers need in this final pivot in the fight against COVID, measures that are in Bill C2 to support the tourism industry, hardest hit businesses. There are some additional provisions. There is money set aside to support BC in the aftermath of the flooding. Again, there, I think Canadians simply know that we need to do that, and it is prudent fiscal management to set that aside. There is also an additional $4.5 billion provision that we have put in the event that Omicron were to require further border measures, further lockdowns. And we have provisioned some additional funding for a total of $40 billion, both to settle the CHRT cases and also to build a much, much better system of care for Indigenous children in Canada. So these are prudent provisions. They're things we have to do. And this is a transparent accounting of where Canada's public finances are.
I was interested that you detailed inflation, housing, and climate change in the documents forward as priorities, yet there was very little specifics in terms of what the government was going to do on those three fronts within this update. I take your point that this is an update and not a budget, but I'm wondering why you're not detailing what the government can do in terms of inflation and housing now.
That is entirely intentional, and I did also in my opening remarks here refer to the need to really drive economic growth and competitiveness. I think that is also a real imperative as we look past COVID. All of these are priorities. I would say climate change, housing, affordability, growth and competitiveness. These are things we are committed to working on, but this is not a budget, and it's not a mini budget. Really, the intention here is a clear and transparent accounting of where the Canadian economy and Canadian finances are today. And we have, necessarily disclosed some spending that we see in the future, like supporting BC in the aftermath of the flooding. And we have been transparent about some additional COVID spending, both on tools on the healthcare front and on additional business and income supports. But I really want to emphasize, this is not a mini budget. We're going to have a budget in the spring, and we've just had an election campaign with an election platform.
Okay, our next question will be from Glenn McGregor from CTV. And can I invite Raymond Fillon from TVA to come up to the open mic, please?
Minister, I just want to ask about your personal situation today. We're expecting to see you in person here. I understand that 2 of your staff have tested positive, at least on a rapid test. Can you tell me when you found out about that, why you made the decision to self-isolate based on that, and whether or not you had any contact with other members of the cabinet today in person?
Yeah, thank you for asking the question, Glenn. And I did expect to be seeing you in person today. I have not had any direct contact with my 2 staff members who tested positive on rapid tests. They are self-isolating and are getting PCR tests to determine their health status. My view, and I should also say, I have today taken 2 molecular tests. And the results of both have been negative. But I am very concerned about the rise of Omicron. This is, by all accounts, all the evidence we have, much more virulent, much more transmissible than the previous variants of COVID. And so I took the decision this morning that both to set an example and also to protect you, the press corps, to protect members of parliament, to protect my cabinet colleagues, I wouldn't go to any large gatherings. I attended cabinet virtually today. And the final thing I'll say is my office has been in touch with Ottawa Public Health. Their guidance was that since I hadn't had direct contact with these 2 staff members, it would probably be enough for me to just self-monitor for symptoms. But I thought about it, and I just felt, particularly with all the spending here that I am disclosing on the fight against COVID, all of the exhortations I am making to Canadians to please get your boosters, use your rapid tests, that the right thing for me to do was to behave with an abundance of caution.
Okay, thank you. On the fiscal update, your projection for a deficit came in at about $10 billion less than was projected previously. By coincidence, maybe that's almost the same amount that your increase in GST revenues were over their projection. So the opposition has accused the government of profiting off inflation. How does that is that not an example where you're getting more GST revenue because the cost of everything is going up?
Glenn, there are so many different factors that have brought us to the final numbers that you see in this update. Some costs are higher than we initially provisioned in the budget. For example, you will remember that we extended the business and income supports a little bit longer than we had provisioned to extend them in the budget. We extended those to the end of October rather than to the end of September. That's an extra cost, and you see that cost revealed here. We have also, as I've already discussed, spent even more money on vaccines, on therapeutics, on boosters, and on rapid tests. And again, when we delivered the budget, we didn't know that these therapeutics would be available. You see here that we are setting aside $2 billion to buy the therapeutics. And again, I am pretty sure every single Canadian will say, that's really good that the government of Canada is buying those medicines that could save lives and prevent hospitalizations. So what I'm saying is there is some spending that we didn't know we would need to undertake when we presented the budget. But the reality is also the performance of the economy has been more robust than we forecast. The economy is stronger. GDP grew by 5.4% in the third quarter, and really significantly, the employment numbers are significantly better than we forecast they would be. 106% of jobs have been recovered since the depth of the COVID recession. That has a real impact on the bottom line, because when people are working, we do not have to support them with our social welfare net. And also when people are working, they contribute to the economy. So there are a lot of factors that go into this, but I would say the bottom line is Canadians should be pleased, and I certainly am, that our numbers have come in better than we forecast they would in the April budget. And above all, they should be pleased that we have largely recovered from the extreme trauma that the COVID recession imposed on our economy.
Okay, our next question will be from Raymond Filion from TVA, and I'll invite Hélène Buzetti from Le Coop de l'Information to go up to the mic.
Bonjour, Mme Freeland. J'aimerais vous entendre au sujet de la menace du variant Omicron. Vous mettez de côté 4,5 milliards dans votre énoncé économique aujourd'hui. Comment en êtes-vous arrivé à ce chiffre-là et à quoi pourrait servir cet argent-là?
Merci pour la question, Raymond. Et je veux souligner qu'il y a aussi plus de 7 milliards de dollars dans la loi C2. Et la loi C2 donnera plus d'aide aux entreprises les plus durement touchées par la COVID. Alors, je pense que ce sont aussi des mesures liées à la COVID en général et Omicron spécifiquement. Concernant le 4,5, 500 millions de dollars de cette somme est pour les mesures à la frontière et on a provisionné 4 milliards de dollars pour l'appui, les subventions salariales et la subvention pour la loyer et aussi la PCE si ce sera nécessaire. Comme vous savez très bien, dans la loi C2, on a des mesures pour donner une assurance à tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Les mesures qui mettront en place les subventions pour le loyer, les subventions salariales et les subventions qui vont directement aux gens dans le cas que les nouvelles mesures de confinement seront nécessaires. Et je veux souligner, je ne veux pas des nouvelles mesures de confinement et je pense que tous les Canadiens seront d'accord avec moi. Mais c'est prudent pour le gouvernement de provisionner de l'argent dans le cas que ce sera nécessaire. Et c'est aussi important pour le fédéral d'envoyer un message aux provinces, aux territoires, aux municipalités, que si vous devez faire des choses difficiles mais nécessaires pour protéger la santé, le fédéral sera là pour aider les entreprises et les gens.
En relance, Mme Freeland, M. Trudeau a annoncé sur les réseaux sociaux cet après-midi qu'il convoque une réunion d'urgence des premiers ministres justement pour parler du variant Omicron. Pouvez-vous confirmer que de nouvelles mesures aux frontières pour les voyageurs sont en train d'être préparées par le gouvernement fédéral?
Je peux confirmer que le gouvernement fédéral, comme on était dès le début de la pandémie, comprend l'importance de prendre les mesures très vite pour protéger la santé des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Et nous comprenons aussi qu'en protégeant la santé des Canadiens et Canadiennes, on protège aussi notre économie et notre capacité économique. Le fédéral a la responsabilité pour les frontières. On a déjà pris des mesures, mais on voit que l'Omicron est très, très virulent. L'Omicron est parmi nous et on va faire tout ce nécessaire pour protéger les Canadiens. Et je dois dire que je suis contente et peut-être pas le mot juste qu'on en pense de la difficulté de la situation. Mais je dirais c'est une bonne chose que dans la loi C2, on a déjà mis en place les outils qui peut-être seront nécessaires pour protéger les Canadiens dans le cas que les mesures plus strictes seront nécessaires au niveau domestique. Et comme vous voyez, on a prévisionné 4,5 millions de dollars dans cette mise à jour. La mise à jour était bien avant la vague d'Omicron qu'on voit aujourd'hui cette semaine, mais on est prudente et on essaie d'être prudent et de provisionner l'argent qui peut-être sera nécessaire pour nous protéger. C'est comme une politique d'assurance pour le pays.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Hélène Bizzetti, and I'll invite Ryan Tumulty from the National Post to go up to the open mic.
Oui, bonjour Madame Freeland. Alors dans le document, ça nous confirme qu'une hausse du taux d'intérêt de 1% augmente les frais d'intérêt du gouvernement fédéral sur la dette de 5 milliards de dollars par année, à peu près, là. J'aimerais savoir, est-ce que c'est ça qui explique en partie le fait du maintien de la politique monétaire, du fait qu'on ne propose pas peut-être des mesures très draconiennes pour contrer l'inflation, parce que si les taux d'intérêt augmentent trop vite, ça va vous coûter trop cher?
Non, ce n'est pas le cas. On était très, très clair hier quand j'étais avec le gouverneur de la Banque du Canada que c'est la responsabilité conjointe du gouvernement et de la Banque du Canada à chaque 5 années de mettre en place le mandat pour la banque, de mettre en place les cibles pour la banque et on l'a fait hier. Mais concernant les décisions opérationnelles autour du taux d'intérêt et concernant l'inflation, c'est la responsabilité indépendante du Banque du Canada. Ce n'est pas la responsabilité du fédéral.
Mais qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ceux qui ont l'impression que devant cette montée importante de l'inflation, qu'il faudrait peut-être agir plus rapidement et qu'on ne le fait pas justement parce que Ottawa sait que ça lui coûterait trop cher?
Et je dois répéter que la responsabilité pour contrôler l'inflation, c'est la responsabilité opérationnelle du Banque du Canada. Et cette indépendance est très, très importante. C'est une fondation de la stabilité et la prévisibilité du Canada. En même temps, je peux ajouter que c'est important de constater que l'inflation aujourd'hui, c'est un phénomène global. Et beaucoup de pays, nos homologues, ont un taux d'inflation plus élevé que la nôtre. Par exemple, aux États-Unis, le niveau d'inflation est plus de 6%. Le moyen dans les pays dans OCDE dans le mois d'octobre était 5,2%. Alors, très important aussi de souligner que c'est un phénomène global. Et je finirai en disant que on a déjà pris dans le budget du printemps beaucoup de mesures structurelles pour aider la croissance économique du Canada et aussi pour aider les gens avec l'abordabilité. Et on va continuer avec cette approche dans le budget dans l'année prochaine.
Okay, Ryan Tumulty is up next, and I'll invite Brian Platt from Bloomberg to go up to the mic.
Yeah, good afternoon, Minister. On inflation, you mentioned in your speech talking about it as a global phenomenon. And I think most economists agree with you on that front. I'm just wondering, though, it is having a real impact on Canadians' budgets right now for groceries, for basic household items. Is the government going to try to do more to attack the bigger issue, I guess?
So first of all, Ryan, you are quite right. I would say there is a very profound consensus among mainstream economists that what Canada is experiencing right now is the global phenomenon of inflation. What we are experiencing is the result of supply chain disruptions. What we are experiencing is the result of a period when, because of COVID restrictions, people spent much more on durable goods and much less on services than we normally do. That exacerbated the supply chain snarls. And of course, we're seeing elevated energy prices. All of these are global issues. I think that it is also really, really important to emphasize that when you look at the Canadian economy, actually the picture that this fiscal update confirms, I think the really big story is we experienced a huge trauma in the spring of 2020. We experienced the deepest recession since the Great Depression, a 17% contraction, and 3 million people lost their jobs. And what I am reporting to Canadians today is we have largely recovered from that economic trauma. Yes, there are still challenges. Omicron is a big challenge, and affordability is a big challenge. And we are putting in place measures to deal with both of those.
You frequently mentioned childcare as something to help with the inflation crisis for Canadian families. But for Canadian families that have older children or no children at all, that doesn't do a lot. I'm wondering, what can you do for those other families who are facing pressures at the grocery store?
So first of all, thank you for mentioning childcare, because we now have deals with 9 out of 10 provinces. We just need to get deals with Ontario, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. And once we've done that, we will have a universal, high-quality, affordable early learning and child care system built across our country. And that is going to make a big difference to the Canadian economy for families with young children. And I agree with you, Ryan, that's not everyone. But that is a very important group of Canadians doing a really important job, which is raising the next generation. And this system is going to make a huge difference to them, and it's going to make a huge difference to them starting right away as childcare costs fall by 50% by the end of next year. So that's point one, very, very significant. In terms of more broadly supporting Canadians, the single most important thing when it comes to the well-being of most Canadians is having a job. And that's why I was so deeply concerned when COVID first hit about the 3 million jobs we lost. And that's why the jobs recovery, from my perspective, is the single most important part of the Canadian economic story. We have other measures of affordability that we're going to be working on, very much including housing, which I know is a concern for Canadians.
All right, I've just been informed that Bloomberg will have to be our last question. We would love to get one more French question in there if possible, but I don't think that's the case, unfortunately. So Brian Platt, go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Your election platform in September laid out about $78 billion in new spending, and it's our understanding that very little of that is reflected in this fiscal update. So does that mean we should expect to see that $78 billion in the spring budget? And if so, do these projected deficits that look lower right now, are they actually not going to be all that much lower?
That is a really good question, Brian. Look, this fiscal update is what the title says. It's a fiscal update of where we are in the economy today, and it includes the measures that we believe are urgent and necessary right now. First and foremost, continuing the fight against COVID, which everyone knows cannot wait until the budget next year, but also other urgent things like supporting BC in the aftermath of the flooding. In terms of our election platform, we are going to do what we promised Canadians we would do. I would point out that that platform was fully costed, and it's a platform for our full mandate.
I also wanted to ask you about rapid tests, and today obviously shows that they can be useful as an early warning indicator. And your fiscal update today shows a large outlay of money to buy a whole bunch more of them. But Omicron is already here. From what we can tell, it's already spreading. So why wasn't this massive purchase of rapid tests done months ago to prepare for a variant like this coming in? Is this not a little bit late now?
Not at all. We actually have a lot of rapid tests in the country already, and the federal government has distributed those to provinces and territories, and we're buying a lot more. And so my message to provinces and territories, health authorities across the country is please use and distribute the rapid tests we've already sent you. We are ordering 180 million more. We know that they can be useful. We know that they can make a real difference in our fight against Omicron in the coming weeks. So there is not a shortage of rapid tests today in Canada, and we have a lot more coming. I really urge Canadians, use rapid tests, use boosters, wear your masks, take prudent measures where rapid tests let you know that there might be some challenges in your workplace. And I think, if we're careful, we really can minimize the degree to which Omicron hits us. Canada actually has been doing a really great job in our fight against COVID-19. If you compare both the mortality rates and also the level of infection in Canada to our peer countries, we're in good shape right now. And this update does include significant spending on the tools that can help us get through the next few difficult weeks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. All right, I believe that concludes our press conference for today. Thank you all so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Minister, thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry I wasn't there in person for reasons I have explained.